Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special Friday episode where we're flashing it back to the past, Dota 1. I am your host, Blackheart, and my co host, the taller one of the Monday hosts, Cyphus.
I am the tallest of all the Monday hosts.
You've never played Dota 1 before, right?
No, I played. So Warcraft 2 was like one of the games that got me into gaming as a young kid. And then I played a little bit of Warcraft 3 before my taste kind of evolved beyond RTS. And then that was about it.
Well, perfect, because our guest today is a gal that I've played Dota 1 with, Prove Attitude.
Hello. I'm actually really excited that you've never played Dota 1, so we can kind of blow your mind today.
I'm ready. I'm ready to have my mind blown.
Should we start it off with State of Affairs?
I'm always down to do that.
All right, let's start with Cyphus first, because I'm pretty sure his is the lowest.
Oh, yeah, it's as low as they go. I'm sitting at like 2020 or something on my solo. And then a little higher on the party, sitting about 2200 right now. So it's going all right. I'm smurfing, you know.
Have you calibrated yet?
No. We're like, I want to say 20 games into it.
How many games do you have to play?
I've heard estimates are as high as like 500. So we're going to be smurfing for a while.
Oh my god.
But it's been fun as hell. I will say that.
Well, my solo is currently at 2299 and my party is at 2819. Kind of dropped there, but it's okay. We're still having fun.
Yeah, so I was at 4K for a while, and then I started losing a lot of games. So currently I am sitting at about 3.5 party and about 3.7 solo. I broke my loss streak, though, so I'm really happy about that. It was a 10-game loss streak, and I went into low priority with a friend and ended up breaking it in low priority, which is kind of surprising to me.
Very nice. Nothing like winning a low priority game.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't visited the prison system that is low priority in a long time. I've never gone there myself, but I won't name names, but I have a really good friend who goes there with some frequency. He's a repeat offender, we'll say. Is it still just as volatile and terrible as it always was, or has it like changed somewhat now that they've implemented all the new low priority rules?
I never went into it. I would say the first time I've been in it was pretty recently, so I don't know how it was back in the day. I've heard stories. But when I went to it, I was with a party of 5. So I can't really say much about having your allies being like that because it was all people I know. But the enemies were all fine. And honestly, like they were really close games. I would feel like they were really high quality games compared to just like regular ranked. I didn't ever feel like it was just like dumpster Dota or anything like that. I think people might go like a little crazier builds and not play as seriously, but I think that's good for Dota to just have that innovation and thinking outside of the box.
Well, back in the day, everyone had to be in the game. Like if one person left, either though if you won or lost, it still wouldn't count. So I'm glad they changed it where if somebody left and you still won, it would still count as a win.
That's pretty brutal.
That is pretty harsh.
Yeah, they were pretty downright brutal, savage even. those games. It's the changes they made to low priority make a ton of sense. I'm glad that they did it.
That's good. I've definitely sent people there a lot, but never been there on my own accord.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I save those reports. I feel like they mean something.
Definitely.
So, Proof, when did you start playing Dota, and what are your favorite heroes?
It was really early when Dota was in Warcraft 3. It started in StarCraft. So when it came to Warcraft 3, I started playing pretty quickly. So it was around 2004, 2005. So I've been in the scene for like 12 years now. But I haven't been like directly involved with the scene for that long. That's only been for about 8 years. But as far as favorite heroes, Disruptor, Omni Knight, and Weaver. Those are probably my top 3 favorites.
Oh yeah, like that one game we had where you just ran around and just messed around. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, that was a good game.
And you also shoutcast, right? Are you used to in Dota 1?
Yeah, I just have a long history of just like odd end jobs and Dota and Dota 2. So shoutcasting was one of those things that I did a long time ago. It started back in Dota 1. I actually was in Dota Cash, which you are familiar with, Blackheart. But for people who aren't familiar with Dota Cash, it was basically a Dota 1 community that hosted bots so you could play the game and like track your score and stuff because this wasn't part of Warcraft 3 Dota. So there was like outside services that did this for you. So I was
I,
casting, and this guy messages me, and he's like, "Hey, I have a YouTube channel. I'm trying to get a little more well known and start casting more and more. And I was wondering if I could join you in your cast so we could bring, semi-competitive Dota 1 to the public." I was like, "Yeah." So I started casting with this guy. His name is Purge Gamers. I'm sure most people have heard of him. So he started back in Dota 1 as well, and his career just kind of took off after that in casting. But I learned a lot from him casting back in Dota 1. We had like different styles, I guess. I was a little more of a hype caster and he was a little more of an analyzer. So by working together, I learned a lot from him in terms of like analyzing things, and he learned a lot from me in terms of like making things less dry and more hype.
That's way cool.
oh
So,
yeah, I remember.
do you ever do anything with Purge? These days.
I haven't for a really long time. I actually just met him recently back in last May, so almost a year ago, back at the summit when we both attended that. So I finally got to meet him in person, which was awesome, and we had a good chat about the olden days and stuff like that. But in terms of actual work with Purge, I haven't done anything with him for a really long time. But he's a great person to work with, really down to earth.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sounds fun. So, what kind of drastic changes can you tell us from Dota 1 and Dota 2?
Oh boy, there's a lot actually. It's kind of crazy. Um, my YouTube channel has a lot of differences. They're based around heroes, but even not specifically the heroes, there's just like general changes from Dota 1 to Dota 2 that I haven't done yet. And one of the biggest changes that I think, and I don't know why this is a big change, like what caused it, but it's juking. And I don't know if you remember this, Blackheart, but in Dota 1, like if you juked, if you ran around trees or got out of someone's vision, it was very hard for them to follow where you're going or even get an attack off. But in Dota 2 now, it's different because when you're juking somebody, their attack animation, if they get a small glimpse of you, the attack like will go through all the way. But in Dota 1, if they got a glimpse of you, they could start their attack, but if they lost vision of you, the attack would stop. So juking is like not effective at all in Dota 2. And people like myself, I try it. Some other people who have played Dota 1 have tried it as well. And they just, you notice the difference immediately. You're like, you can't juke in this game. It's not jukeable like it was in Dota 1. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's like attack animations or something with the Fog of War. It's something that I haven't done the research on, but there's definitely a difference. And I would say it's probably one of the biggest differences.
Isn't there a lot of spells that are not disjointable now that they used to be in Dota 1?
Yeah, there's I can't remember how it is. It is different in Dota 1 and Dota 2, but like one is disjoints the damage but not the stun, and the other one it disjoints the stun but not the damage. So there is a difference in that as well.
Because I think I was in a game last night and this alchemist did like the stun, and then it was just completely like you couldn't disjoint it if you blinked or you force staffed or you got grabbed. So that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I did an alchemist video for the Dota difference, and there was a part about disjoining. It's been a while, so I can't recall it exactly. But it was different in both games according to like what you could disjoin and like how it disjointed it, and I think the timing was different as well.
Well, Cyphus is what are your favorite heroes? Maybe we can knowledge bomb you.
All right. So, well, I've been. I think I told you, Blackheart. I was initially when I started Dota 2, I was always drawn to casters. So I played a ton of Skywrath Mage. I think my first like 75 games, and maybe my only 75 games of this hero were all on Skywrath. And then I kind of segued over to Lion for a long time, and then Silencer. So I'd say those three probably top my list for heroes that I enjoy playing. And then lately OD, just because I'm smurfing. Because why not?
So I did a history of Dota on Silencer recently, and he Did you say Silencer was one of your ones, or was it
Yeah,
Skywrath?
yeah, no,
Silencer
Skywrath
was.
and Silencer.
Okay, yeah. So Silencer was like really interesting back in the day because he was totally different than he is now. And he's been in so many different roles like carry, support, utility, team fighty. He's been so many different roles. But the way he started out, actually, he had Warlock's ultimate, so the Chaos, Reign of Chaos, or whatever it's called, the Golems. He had that, and it wasn't even his ultimate; it was his normal skill. So can you imagine like Silencer nowadays? Just going around just like throwing meteors like that on people. So he was really different.
Yeah,
Sounds like an AD match.
sounds like an inappropriate nerf, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it was definitely a nerf. He was so powerful. He had a healing wave, he had the golems, and then he actually had Mirana's Starstorm. So he's like just a super pusher, which is nothing that we've seen him in nowadays. He hasn't been a pusher for a really long time since his inception.
So, I mean, was the thinking there that they divvied him up into 4 different heroes?
Pretty much, yeah. So the Starfall went to Mirana, the Golems went to Warlock, the Healing Wave went to Dazzle. So they did kind of divvy him up. The only thing that he kept specifically was his global, which is something that he did have for a really long time. In the beginning, it wasn't a global cast spell. It was basically a passive, and when you like attack the hero, it would just silence them. You didn't have to use mana or anything. You just had to attack them, and it would silence them for 9 seconds.
Dear
So
God.
Wait, like throwing a glaive?
yeah, you just you throw a glaive, you attack them just once, and it would silence for 9 seconds.
What the heck?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was
Inappropriate
crazy
nerfs. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah,
Inappropriate nerfs.
I mean, he wasn't a silencer, with the spells that he had. So I think that's why they kind of tried to change him around because his name just didn't fit what he did.
So, I mean, but did Warlock and Dazzle, did they exist in some form sans those spells?
Um, Dazzle is fairly new. He wasn't one of the originals. Warlock, I don't know when he came into play, but it was after like Silencer got rid of the Reign of Chaos and all that. So these heroes weren't really around at that time when that happened. Mirana was around. Um, I want to say she had Starfall too, but I'm not entirely positive. It might have been a different form, or she might have came later.
That's pretty cool. So before we do more like hero differences, this thought just kind of sprung to mind. Can you still play Dota 1? I mean, what is it like to play Dota 1 these days?
You can. I haven't played personally in probably about a year and a half or so. So I'm curious if the community is still striving and like pretty strong. I hear it is in overseas kind of poorer countries that can't afford computers that can run Dota 2 yet. So I know it's still pretty big over there, but in terms of like US community, I'm not sure how big it is. But yeah, if you wanted to play Dota, assuming that like people are still hosting it and playing, you can just hop on Warcraft 3, join battle.net, make a name, and hop into a Dota game. I would not advise it because you'll have delay and you might have to deal with people disconnecting or leaving, and it's actually really difficult to go back to Dota 1.
I'm new in-house idea, you know.
You could, yeah, if you want to just like,
Force
have
everybody
a
to play
silly
Dota
night.
1.
Yeah. But no, you could. You would need a Warcraft 3 like CD key in order to play on battle.net, but you can play offline all on the same CD key if you wanted to.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I wondered if that thoughts crossed my mind about a half dozen times whether or not it's even possible to go back and play it. I definitely would be curious to see just what it looked like in general.
Yeah, it definitely is. I would be curious to see how the community is doing. I don't know if there's any communities like Dota Cash or like THR that use hosting bots to host the games for you, so there's no delay, and so you can kind of track your stats. So if there's not those services, then you would be at the mercy of whoever's hosting. So if I'm like over here in Utah and somebody in the Eastern Coast is hosting, I could have like easily up to 2 seconds of delay. So it could be kind of annoying in that regard. And
Yeah.
Dota 2 just makes everything so much simpler. You have hotkeys and little interface for your courier, and you go back to Dota 1 and you're like, how do I get my courier? Like you have to go back to base, click on the courier and bring it to you. There's no way to like have it on your interface or anything.
Well, and wasn't it the case that like if you bought the courier, you owned the courier and had to like actually share the ability to control it with others?
Yeah, it wasn't shareable back in Dota 1. That was so much fun.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that actually. That's true.
Like if you were partying up with somebody that was just like a complete dick, or they were just being rude, like you know how some people are nowadays, you can just buy a courier and you would have to make them suffer. And was there a cooldown? I don't remember, but I know it was more expensive.
I don't think there was a cooldown as far as I remember. Um, but yeah, it was super frustrating. People could just control your hero. You know, if they got mad at you, they just start using your spells or running you into the enemy fountain or whatever.
Oh yeah, you
Kind of sucked.
couldn't split it either.
You
It
couldn't
was
split it, yeah. Because in Dota 2, you can be like, okay, this person can use my units, but they can't control me. But in Dota 1, you just share control. So they have control of everything, your items, your hero, your
Oh,
courier.
yeah, that sounds disturbing.
It was.
I think the first video I ever saw from you was because of Gorgon. He mentioned to us a while back that he knew you. And I went and I watched a video with the Gambler. Which part of me wishes there were a hero called the Gambler still. You know, I'm not gonna lie. I fancy myself a gambler from time to time. What was that hero like? What was and why don't we have that hero here?
Uh, that's a really easy question. You don't have that hero here now because he was freaking Imba. I mean, if you could conjure up the most Imba hero that you could think of, it still wouldn't be as Imba as Gambler. This guy is freaking ridiculous. There's no hero in Dota that really like gambles. I mean, Ogre Magi kind of gambles a little bit with chances to do things, but there's not like true gambling, and there's nothing to do with money. You never gamble your money in Dota 2. So this hero was just like completely unique in the regard that every one of his skills were based off of using his gold or off the enemy's gold. So I don't know if your listeners have watched this video. So, for example, his ultimate was based off how much gold you have. So it dealt damage based on your gold. So if I had 3,000 gold saved up, I would use my ultimate on somebody, and it would basically like roll for a chance to do such amount of damage. So I could either do 1 damage or I could do all 3,000 damage. And that's just huge. So you can save your money up and you won't have items, but you have a chance of doing more damage. I mean, it's just like it's so extreme in terms of gambling.
Was that like a first pick hero for a lot of people?
I think it was, yeah. I feel like he has like kind of the history of techies. Like, there's the people who just love techies, and then most people freaking hate techies, right? So it's just the same with Gambler. Like, people love to play Gambler because he's just like random and crazy, and he's kind of unique, like techies is. But like playing against Gambler, you just like want to tear your hair out. It's so frustrating.
Yeah,
kind
unfortunately,
of
I'm
like Arc
surrounded.
Warden.
Yeah.
Oh, seeing I'm surrounded by people who love techies and love Arc Warden. That's all that exists around here, unfortunately.
I'm a huge Techies fan as well. I really like him. I think that he is counterable enough, but it definitely is frustrating. But I do enjoy a good Techies play.
Yeah, he's ultra counterable. You're talking about a hero who's countered by a 200 gold item in the shop.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel. I don't know.
Yeah.
It too often techies doesn't live up to the hype. That's how I feel.
I feel like people just don't know how to play against them. Like, their first natural response is just get frustrated and they just like keep doing stupid things. But if you know how to play against the techies, it's not that bad. You just like don't go into crazy places without vision. Group up as a team, buy a gem in the game, and then you're playing 5 vs 4, and your techies that you're against is doing absolutely nothing because if you have a gem, he literally can't do anything. So you're up 1 hero automatically. You just push and win.
Well, and it seems like we never see, because like at TI5, yeah, I think it was EG who was running techies with some frequency, and they were using him as a pusher. They were actually like he wasn't running around the map, possibly not getting experience for 5 minutes and accidentally DCing from the goddamn game. he was in lane. He was using those mines to push a wave. And I don't like I can't say that I've ever seen a techies really do that in a pub unless like they had absolutely mined literally everything they could possibly want, and then felt like that was all they had left to do. And even then, it's only for a few moments until some hero winds up dead and they can go back to mining again.
I think it
Yeah.
really just depends on like which heroes are on the other team, because if you're able to do enough damage to towers, there's no point in techies putting mines all over the map, because you can just take tower one by one and then nobody needs to go back to base as well. I mean, by the time you're done with 3 towers, you probably already have your Yules and you'll have more than enough mana regen.
Yeah, it's interesting how people play techies in pubs. Like you mentioned, it was EG. It was actually AUI, I believe, who like was the big techies player, and he actually forced out a lot of respect bans in that regard, which helped EG win at the time. But the way he plays is interesting because it's totally different than the way people play in pubs, and that's why it's not really that scary with techies as long as you know how to play against them. Because some people will just go level 1 and they'll stay like level 1 or level 2 for like 10 or 15 minutes to the game. They just like don't gain levels. And I hate when I see techies do that because it's like, yeah, you're mining the river, yeah, you're mining the woods, but you have no levels. You're a low level for the longest time. And that's not the way that techies should be played. You need to stay in a lane, you need to get money, you need to get your axe, you need to get items that will actually help your team so that if you do get countered by a gym, you're not just like feeding away mines and not being able to do anything. If you get your ags and you're in a team fight and you lay down a mine and you're doing 750 damage every like 8 or 10 seconds, I mean, that's a lot of damage that a gym isn't going to be able to counter.
Yeah, I have seen our boy Roland get the 5 minute abando for not getting XP. I've seen it happen.
That's awesome. I actually haven't seen that happen. I always was curious how often that happened to people, but I've never personally have seen it.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that it probably happens like 2% of the time. So if you're out there spamming 100 games of techies, there are a couple games you wound up abandoning, even if you were winning.
That makes sense.
So it was. I mean, well, let's talk about techies. What was techies like in Dota 1?
No experience. If you're not near them, when you get a kill, you get no experience.
Yeah, that is true. I actually don't know too much about Techies' history. I couldn't tell you too much. I don't think he's changed very much. He's pretty much had the same 4 skills for a really long time, as far as I can remember. I think that's how he started.
Well,
You can stack mines better.
You
Now
could.
you can't. Now it's like, it's okay, but it's a little harder.
when he got into the game initially, I know you could do the mine stacking. I played like a game of techies way early on, and I know I saw Roland stack mines one right on top of the other the entire time. And I think initially, if you weren't around, you didn't get the XP either. At least right after he was brought into Dota 2. I don't know when that change was made. Might have been 686.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago where you got experience in the AoE. The stacking was fixed pretty recently too. I remember seeing a bunch of Reddit threads about like how to stack it successfully so everything was on top of each other, and now you can't do that, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, but I don't know. I mean, I guess it was a nerf to the hero, who probably it's weird to say, but like I don't think the hero needed to be nerfed. I know for a long time I was not afraid to see a techies on my team, or to see a techies on the enemy team. I was more afraid to see a techies on my team. So yeah, I don't know that the hero necessarily needed that nerf, but
yeah, he went through a bunch of nerfs. I don't like how his landmines do less damage now. So they changed it so they do less damage, but you can have unlimited amounts now. Before you can only have like 20 or 25 on the board. But they did a lot more damage, and I don't really like that change. I like that you can kill the mines and they won't explode, and that you can kill them with a quelling blade. I think that was a really good change and something that was needed. But I don't like the way they just changed around the landmines. I liked it the way it was before.
Yeah. No,
I don't think you used to get gold before either when you kill him, right?
No, I don't think he did.
Yeah, I think that was a change that happened at the same time as the stacking nerf that came to him.
Yeah, I think that was all in the same patch as well.
But I'm glad they added that you can suicide on a courier now.
Oh, you can?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can.
Oh.
Wow.
A courier and a hero.
Suicide is magic damage, though, right?
But you can't stun a courier, right?
Yeah, you can't use like most spells on a courier. They're considered like magic immune. Um,
Then I think suicide may be physical damage.
Yep,
maybe
Suicide Squad attack is physical damage.
it is physical. Okay, so that's why you can use it now. Then
Oh yeah.
that makes sense.
So your most recent video that you uploaded was about Omni Knight and the differences between him and the current game and the previous.
Uh-huh.
What care to talk a little bit about what the differences for Omni Knight are like?
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so I have a really bad memory, so I'm having to bring up like my script and figure out what was happening with Omni Knight. So one really interesting thing about Omni Knight is I had made this video. I had done the testing and the recording. I made the script, and then right when I was about to release this video, I had everything pretty much done, all the segments done in my editing, and a patch came out. It was that spring cleaning patch that we had pretty recently. And whenever there's a new patch that comes out, I look through the bugs list to make sure that none of my videos has something that changed in it. And if they do, I update it with an annotation so people know that it was changed. So in the spring cleaning, like 2 or 3 of these things that I was gonna put in for Omni Night that I had already finished ended up being fixed in that patch.
Oh,
So it's like bittersweet. I'm like, okay, it's good that they're fixing bugs in the game. That's always good. But then my video is like already outdated before I even released it. So that was kind of frustrating. But one of the things I did want to mention that was in the video that was fixed before I could release it was purging with Sand King. Like if he was repelled and you go ahead and you sandstorm, it will actually get, if you diffuse it, or I'm sorry, okay, I'm saying this all wrong. Let me try again. So if you are sandstorming and an ally repels you, your sandstorm will actually make you visible. So it was something that was
do
fixed,
you
but I
keep
always thought that was really
sandstorming?
interesting. You don't. So if you're an enemy, it cancels the sandstorm and it makes you visible. But if you're an ally, it doesn't cancel it, but it just makes you visible. So it was kind of interesting that that was fixed. Like that, it's such a random thing that was fixed, and that's what it is with all the bug fixes. Is it's just like random stuff that Valve will fix, and then all these other things remain broken. So, anyways, I just wanted to mention that there was some things in the video that didn't actually make it to the video because they were fixed. In terms of Omni, what was changed? Trying to think what was the biggest one for Omni. I think it's magic immunity. So if you're magic immune in Dota 2 and an Omni has repel, he can use repel on you even if you're magic immune. And that's pretty big, right? Because if you're BKB'd and your BKB is about to wear off, you want to make sure that you have even more magic immunity by adding repel on top of that BKB so that when the BKB wears off, you're still magic immune. So there's no like delay between when people can start using spells on you between the repel and the BKB. So that's something that you can do in Dota 2, but in Dota 1, you can't like have double magic immunity like that. So if you're BKB, you actually can't get repel. The BKB has to be down before you can repel.
Does I don't know why this made me think of it, but I'm sure I've done it before, but I can't recall it. does Omni Knight, because Omni Knight's heal obviously doesn't go through repel? Does Omni Knight's heal go through BKB?
Um, no. So
Okay,
it's pure damage, but it doesn't pierce magic immunity. So it's
right. So
not
I
like
couldn't
yeah.
the heal on my carry if he had BKB popped. I'm sure I've
Right.
attempted that before.
Yeah, so you can't heal if they're magic immune by repel or BKB or anything like that.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
guardian angel, but you can't heal with the.
So many goddamned interactions in Dota that every
It's
once in a while
crazy.
one pops up and I go, I know I've done this. I know I've played this hero 100 times with somebody who had a BKB. I know I've attempted to do it. I know I've thought about how I can't do it, but because it's one of those minute little interactions, in a
Yeah, it's
moment I
crazy.
can forget. I feel like I can forget it.
There's so many mechanics. Like, I mean, there's 110 or 112 heroes. They all have 4 spells. All 4 of those spells from all 110 heroes all interact with all these other spells in different ways. I mean, I consider myself a mechanics person and I know a lot of interactions, but still, like, I will get asked a question. I'll be like, I have no idea. I mean, I probably have heard this answer in the past or even done a video on it, but I honestly cannot tell you. There's just way too much to remember.
All
I
right, Lotus Orb, Sunder. Does that work?
Yeah, but nothing happens because basically, like, you exchange life and then you exchange it back. So,
So
like,
just
you
like
just
the
go back to your.
animation.
I think you go back to your original state. I'm not 100% sure on this, so don't quote me. But just based on like how interactions work, I would assume that that's what would happen with that. But Lotus Orb is kind of tricky. There's some things that just don't work with it, and some that do.
Do you think, in your opinion, is the game mechanically easier now, or do you think it's become more complex?
Um, for me personally, I think it's more complex, just because in Dota 2, okay, in Dota 1, the Warcraft 3 engine is kind of wonky. So Ice Frog and Ginsu and all these developers for Dota 1, they were kind of like set by these certain rules that Warcraft made them follow. So if you have a spell in Dota 1, there could be 10 heroes whose spells are based off of that spell that's in Warcraft 3. So they're kind of stuck to like those certain mechanics. So everything's kind of a blanket rule with Warcraft 3. So with repels, whether it's an enemy repel or an allied repel, it works the same way because it's all repel. It's all based on the repel skill. But in Dota 2, the way that it seems Ice Frog and the developers work on it is that they can just kind of pick and choose how to fix things. So there's no just like standard for it. So you can have like one thing that's fixed, but then the next thing that seems very similar wouldn't be fixed. So like in another instance with the repel stuff, all allied repels work one way in Dota 2, and all enemies repels work the other way. So it's kind of like it. It's it might be easier for a new player, but for me, I feel like Dota 1 was just like easier to follow, just because you're used to kind of the mechanics and whether something can do something or not based off of.
More like universality with those individual, I guess, capabilities. Then is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, because there's so many engine restrictions when it comes to Warcraft 3, and Dota isn't restricted by that at all. They have complete free reign on whatever they want to change. So in Warcraft 3, you'll know the engine restrictions if you played it for a while. You'll be like, okay, this is an engine restriction, so this isn't gonna work this way, this isn't gonna work this way. But in Dota 2, it's like, well, Ice Frog programmed this to work one way and then programmed this to work a totally different way. So you don't really like know if there's a standard for it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, so did you ever delve into like Heroes of New Earth and any of the other kind of Dota spin-offs, as it were?
I never played Han, never picked it up. I played League of Legends for, I want to say I probably only played like 20 games. Um, it just wasn't really my thing. It was hard to get into new heroes. I was so used already to all the Dota heroes. So it's just like learning new heroes and the different mechanics, like not being able to die and stuff like that was really weird to me. So it just didn't really stick with me.
What about Smite?
I haven't played Smite either. That's
It's,
the like third person one, right?
I,
I'm
yeah,
not sure.
I've wondered that myself. I thought initially that Smite was first person, but Easy Marquise corrected me somewhere along the way. I want to say it's like third person over the shoulder kind of a thing.
Yeah, it seems interesting. I've never tried it. I'd be interested in picking up and just seeing what it's like, but I don't hear much about it. I don't know if there's like really a big scene for it or anything.
I think it's on Steam now, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I think
So
it's a lot easier.
you think Smite's easier?
Like it's easier in terms of like Han and League of Legends. Like Smite would be like the easiest and the closest to Dota.
It seems very similar to World of Warcraft arenas. That's what it seems like to me because it's kind of that same third person style. So it seems like it would be like Warcraft 3, or World of Warcraft arena type deal.
Yeah, it does kind of look. It is definitely over the shoulder. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of definitely a weird game. I'd give it a go though. Hell, it's free to play, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
so with the original Dota community, where do you think most of the original Dota community kind of wound up? Kind of, I don't know, uh, pledging their allegiance, so to speak, with Heroes of New Earth, with League of Legends, with Dota 2. I mean, where do you think they all eventually wound up?
So personally, I have friends who play League of Legends and I have friends who play Dota 2. I would say the majority of people that I know personally did go to Dota 2 instead of League. I want to say probably 75% went to Dota 2 instead of League. As far as like pro players and stuff, there's a lot of pro players in the scene right now that are Dota 1 players. There's obviously a lot of new blood, but there's a lot of old blood too. AUI 2000, he was a Dota 1 player. 1437 was a Dota 1 player. Fear was a Dota 1 player. Universe as well. So there's a lot of like people who have played this game for a really long time and they've stuck with it. I'm not sure if these pro players ever went to League of Legends. I do know a few went to Han for a while, but definitely made their way back to Dota 2, obviously. But they've stuck around. I feel like Dota just has a really loyal fan base. And I don't feel like they've lost too many to League of Legends. I feel like a lot of League of Legends player base is more newer players that have picked up the game because it's easier than Dota 2. But I feel like there's a lot of old school Dota 2 players.
Yeah, definitely. I yeah, I don't know. It's kind of strange to because it feels like Dota obviously spawned all of these MOBAs, or at least kind of popularized MOBAs. Um, but it's strange that Dota 2, as far as player count, we can compare prize pools and all of that with the draw of the international. But it's strange that from a player perspective or a player count perspective, we kind of fall way behind League of Legends. Like I think Roland and I were looking up stats the other night, and League of Legends accounts for like 18% of all time spent playing video games online.
Wow.
And you're talking about like games like Call of Duty, hell, even Dota 2 was substantially lower than that, but they were all single digit percentages of like overall allotted game time. I mean, you're talking League is beating out things like mobile games. Like people spend more time online playing League of Legends than there are people online spending time playing on their mobile phones. And you would think with a mobile phone, I mean, that's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You could be literally at any given time, you could be playing a game on your mobile phone. I don't know. So why do you think that? Do you think it's the complexity that keeps people away from Dota 2 and keeps them over in League? I mean, is that really, at the end of the day, all there is to it?
I think that's honestly a really big part of it. It's definitely not the only part of it. From what I've heard of League, I don't know if they have like better communication or marketing or whatever it may be, but the ceiling cap of Dota 2 and the learning curve of Dota 2 is definitely one of the reasons that people stay away from it. It's just it is easier to pick up League of Legends, and I noticed that when I picked it up as well. It's just not as complex, so that's definitely a reason. As for other reasons, I don't know whether Dota 2 has more of a toxic community than League of Legends. I would imagine it's all pretty similar, but I'm not sure. Um, their hype casters in League of Legends, that's one thing that Dota 2 has not hit yet, is League of Legends has the best hype casters. I mean, just they're super excited about everything. They bring out a really good product, and we have good Dota 2 hype casters, but there's just something really special about League of Legends. And I wonder if that's what helps bring people into the game. It's just like that excitement that you get from watching games, then that brings you into it.
Yeah, I can definitely see what you're saying there. I, I don't know, and I'll agree with you that like Dota 2 does have I mean, a decent share of really solid hype casters. But I don't know. I guess and this is kind of my ignorance from never playing it. But I mean, do they get similar amounts of people watching League? I mean, are those pro events, kind of the spectacle that the Dota 2 events are?
I think they're bigger than Dota 2. I'm pretty sure, for the most part, League has consistently beat Dota 2 in terms of viewership and numbers and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure they are still ahead of us, unfortunately.
So
Weren't they number one on the most watched for Twitch?
Yeah, I think they
I
were.
think for the longest time they were number one. I think Dota 2 may have been maybe five or six, and like CS:GO is like number two.
That makes sense. CS:GO gained a lot of popularity. I was kind of surprised how popular that got. So is CS:GO behind Dota still in terms of viewership?
I think they might be ahead of Dota.
Hmm, that's crazy.
Now I gotta know. I gotta go to Google. I gotta
Yeah,
find out.
I'm honestly not sure. I'm so stuck in like the Dota bubble. Like I buy all these Steam games during the spring sale and whatnot. I install them and I play for like 10 minutes and I'm just thinking I just want to play a Dota. Like you just get so addicted to the game and
Well,
it's
that's what I
hard to play
do
other games.
every time we do a podcast and we start talking about it. I'm like, talking about Dota's fun, but I'd much rather be playing Dota right now. So the top 10
Yeah.
games streamed on Twitch. And this doesn't really answer our viewership question, but I suppose it's interrelated. We got League of Legends at number 1, Counter-Strike Global Offensive at number 2, Dota 2 at number 3, Hearthstone at number 4, Minecraft at 5, H1Z1 at 6, Destiny at 7, World of Tanks at 8.
Never heard
Um,
of that.
oh, you never heard of World of Tanks?
No.
Oh, World of Warcraft and FIFA 15. FIFA makes the top 10 list. That's
That's
kind of
interesting.
surprising.
I,
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense that with that massive player base, of course they draw more viewership and get more stream time than Dota 2.
yeah, I'm not. I think CS:GO is kind of easy to watch. There's no complex mechanics. It's just a shooter. I mean, if that's ignorance on my part, because I've never actually watched CS:GO really, but it just seems like it's an easier game just to pick up and watch. You don't have to know everybody's spells or anything like that. You're just shooting
Yeah,
people, right?
I see, and it's kind of on the flip side. Like that's kind of what bores me the most about watching CS:GO.
Yeah.
Anytime I've ever tuned in, it's been like, yeah, cool, another headshot. Yep, another headshot. Yep, another headshot. I don't know. It as cool as it is to be good at those games, and I had my run in Halo 3. That was my game. That was my FPS. I never really had that desire to watch it the way that I have with Dota. The way that there's something more engaging
Yeah.
visually.
I definitely agree.
Well, surprisingly, CS:GO actually doubles the viewers of Dota 2.
Wow.
So
That's
currently,
crazy.
League of Legends is at 140,000 viewers. CS:GO is at 100,000 viewers. Hearthstone is at 85,000. Dota 2 is at 53,000. And Paragon is at 42,000. The
Hmm.
most viewers so far.
What was League again?
140,276 viewers.
Wow.
I think League also puts like they pump a lot of money into their events as well. So I don't know if that helps with the marketing and gaining viewership and whatnot because they just have really good production.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, they've maintained more control over that game than, or arguably, Valve has with Dota 2.
Than the
Although,
Shanghai majors.
yeah. Although, I mean, it does look like Valve is attempting to kind of rein that in and take control. So, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see where Dota is at in a couple of years. Um,
Yeah, I'm really curious too. People say, it's going to die in 2 years or it's going to die in 5 years, but Dota 1 lasted for 8 years when it had zero support. It was just one person or two people just doing this game, and the community was just so loyal, and that continued for a really, really long time in Dota 1. And the only thing that took away viewership from that, or like player bases, I guess, was just League of Legends and Han popping up. So I think as long as Dota 2 has effort put into it, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere for a really long time. The loyalty of its fans is just way too big.
yeah. For sure. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it does it. Especially when you consider some of the toxic assholes that you run into out there in the pubosphere.
Yep.
But yeah, it does seem to breed a sense of loyalty at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm excited to see what happens with Dota, especially with prize pools climbing like they have been. Surely at some point that's got to be a huge draw to a larger audience when you see just how big those prize pools continue to rise in Dota as compared to other esports. So
Yeah, if you had told me, in 2005 or 2006 that there was going to be multi-million-dollar prize pools for Dota 2 tournaments, I would just like laughed at you and thought you're crazy. Like, who could ever imagine that there would
for
be
any
prize
game,
pools that big for any game, let alone Dota, where like you're lucky back in the Dota 1 days, like pro players were lucky to play in tournaments that were like $1,000 or $2,000. Like those were big prize pools for Dota 1 tournaments. If you had like a 10,000 tournament, I mean, that was huge.
Yeah, it's unreal. It really it is. But you're starting to see the money come into the scene. You're starting to see that influx of cash into esports in general. So, I mean, I guess it's not too surprising in that regard. People are starting to catch on and realize that hey, this generation that lived and died by video games is now giving birth to a new generation, and we're going to start overtaking the generations that don't give a shit about video games. So, yeah, why not invest in the future?
Yeah.
But do you think because of the majors, people might not be willing to purchase from the companion itself?
What do you mean?
Like, because since there are 3 majors now, like we're spending more money.
Oh, you think like, are you asking like, are we exhausting the resource that normally would feed into TI's prize pool?
Yeah, like do you think we will reach 18 million this year?
I think we will. People love their hats, Blackheart. They love their hats.
That's true. Well, and Valve is they're genius, and video game developers in general are. I mean, when you look at Valve's job listings, they're looking for psychologists. Hell, they know what they're doing. They're trying to make those. They make you want a compendium because there are little accomplishments, little achievements, little feathers in your cap that you gather along the way, and many of them come in the form of those digital hats that are completely worthless. If we really want to take a step back and look at it, they're utterly worthless.
They know the demand is there. Like last year, TI5 tickets weren't as much as this year, and some people were complaining about it. It went up quite a big amount.
Well, by double if you think about how they divvied it into the midweek versus the weekend final tickets.
Right. Yeah. So it's a really big increase, and like some people complain, but at the end of the day, like tickets sold out in seconds. Like Valve knows that the demand is there. They could easily charge $300 or $400, and I guarantee that it's still going to sell out at TI7. Like the demand is definitely there for people. And in terms of like items and compendiums, I have never bought a compendium. I'm like the cheapest person you'll probably ever meet, so I don't buy items or anything. So I don't really get that. I don't get the whole like having a cosmetic in game. I just play Dota, I don't care to like make my hero look fancy.
Well, obviously you aren't playing Dota right. All right. I'm sorry. Clearly you don't know.
It's free to play, but it's not free to dress up.
So you're just paying with blood, sweat, and tears.
Hey, I make content. I get paid like no money for my content. So I'm providing that service at least. That's my dues to Valve, bringing their game to the light.
Fair enough. All right, well, I'm going to bring this show to a close because we have eaten up enough of Prove's time. Thanks for coming on and educating us a little bit about Dota 1.
Yeah, it was great to be here. I hope I opened your eyes a little bit and the viewers' eyes as well to what we had to deal with back in the day.
And if you guys want to find Prove, you should check out her YouTube channel. It's at youtube.com/Proves Reviews, Proves Reviews. You can also follow her. It's at Prove Attitude, right?
At Prove Dota.
At Prove Dota, sorry. At Prove Dota on Twitter. And, just follow her there to find out what she's up to, when the next video is going to come out. And if you're like me, somebody who has only played Dota 2, if you're just recently getting into Dota 2, if you've been playing since Dota 2's inception, but you never touched Dota 1, you can find out what Dota 1 was all about, see what it was like. And hell, I would argue that Proves Reviews is the website you could go to become a Dota 1 poser. That's what I'm going to start doing with Roland. I'm going to be on the Monday show talking all sorts of OG Dota 1 shit.
Wanna be Mondays.
So if you guys want to find us, we are defenseofthepatients.com. Email us at defenseofthepatients@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at .p_show. And, of course, go to gofundme.com/Travis on Rails. We need help. We need a website. Our website is shit. Blackheart, how shit is our website?
It's really bad. Like I look at it and I just want to cry.
Like on a scale of 1 to Roland, where are we at on the website?
It's like a 400 MMR Roland.
A 400 MMR Roland. That is an ugly Roland. Yeah, it needs some help. And you know what? We're helping Captain Silverfox learn Ruby. He, kind of change his life in the process and get us a kick-ass website. We are, what are we, about 15% of the way?
16%.
16%. Ah, yeah, our own proud host of Theorycraft Thursday is on there donating $100. So anything you can give, even $1, even $5, we'll take it. We could use it, and Captain Silverfox would really appreciate your help, and of course we here at Defense of the Patients do as well. So if you guys know where to find us, you know all that good stuff. So until next time, this is Cyphus for Blackheart for Proof saying good luck, guys.